Thank you very much. That was very inspiring talk we just heard from Dr. Ananta. Salam, namaste, shalom, good morning. It may be good evening or good afternoon where you are. So shall I just start by just sharing with you my talk, and then we can probably move forward. Let's see, how do I do this? Okay, then I'll do this. Just give me 1 second. So, thank you very much. Before I start, I'll just say, can all of the people in the audience raise their hand if they are the product of human pregnancy? I think we're all. And we are the lucky ones, and so are our mothers. Because globally, 1 in 15 pregnancies end up in death and disaster for the mother. And I will come back to this theme, but let me start by thanking both you, the audience who's listening in on this and presenting, and also the organizer, Dr. Shah, for his kind invitation to speak at this 2020 virtual event, which I understand was planned to be held at the University of Cambridge, a city where my son was born and where I trained many decades ago. You will agree we are all shaped by our genes and environment. And we heard a very elegant speech where at the very beginning, which resonated with me quite a lot. We can't do much about our genes except to acknowledge our families. I believe a positive, caring environment and appropriate exposure is what really shapes us. And universities are uniquely placed to create that transformative environment which impacts on young people's lives. So it is vital we choose the right university for the start of our journey. I would like to spend a few minutes talking about the people who shaped my early career. Obviously, it starts with your angel mother and my late grandmother, you can see in the picture, in the car, but who told me stories of my great-great-grandfather, Sir Ali Imam, who was the architect of creating the state of Bihar. And it was not about his great achievements, but it was about, they taught me humility and kindness. They told me stories that what he did for others, like for girls getting educated, especially from those who come from poor background. And my grandfather, pictured on the extreme right, taught me generosity. So even generosity can be taught. He made me give money away to the needy. So I'm reminded of the power of honesty, hard work, and humility. And these 3 ingredients are all that makes the difference. So what did I do? My journey as a scientist was inspired by the concept of servant leadership, based on what my upbringing was, and led me to a life of work in hunting a cure for preeclampsia. This is a life-threatening condition of pregnancy that affects about 12 million young, otherwise healthy women each year. And it is the cause of 500,000 deaths of mothers and babies each year, and there is no way to prevent it, nor is there a cure, much like we're experiencing with COVID. And my research over 2 decades has led me to discover 2 protective pathways that look to prevent preeclampsia. And I've held professorships for over 2 decades at renowned universities across 3 continents. And and in terms of contribution to society, I'm the first person of color to have created a medical school that is socially inclusive and internationally connected. I was awarded the British Muslim Award in recognition of my services to education. But all of these are insignificant when we think about if we can prevent preeclampsia. And that's the mission. So my mission now is that by the end of this decade, no woman who wants to get pregnant should ever fear preeclampsia, as we do the research and development of our therapeutic drugs to prevent preeclampsia. And I'll come back to this in the later part of my talk. But let me start by telling you about the people who made me who I am. And obviously it starts at home with my father. That's a picture of him with Professor Felix Weinberg of Imperial. But it was early stage, it was Sir Raymond Rickard, who was my father's boss, and but he was a vice chancellor, but he was like a godfather to me. And he was somebody who put me in the right kind of school, moved me to a technical college to do my A-levels, all of those kind of things that my parents didn't know, because although they were highly educated, they just saw they were the first immigrants and they saw a brand new school, must be good. I went to a school which no one had gone to university from. So what I learned early, and this is important for young people, is that you need to find champions and helpers apart from your angel mother. What this shows is that it's exposure that lets you to get to your final goal, helps you develop that goal. And after my training at Cambridge with Professor Smith, you saw a picture of him earlier, I chose University of Birmingham for 3 reasons to start my academic career. It was a campus university. It had good clinical patient population around it in the West Midlands. And most importantly, although not my direct boss or line manager, had an eminent scientist called Bob Michel. And Bob taught me how to write research grants. And when I learned how to write those grants successfully, he told me something that has stayed with me ever since. And I'm paraphrasing it. He basically said that grants are a promise of things to come. Your papers will define you. So let me tell you the story about our discoveries and we just heard about STEM and how major discoveries are done, and we heard about Abu Kalam Azad, who was the 11th president of India, and he said something that has always remained with me, which is FAIL stands for first attempt in learning. So in science, you will fail, but the key is to get up and do it again in a different way till you develop that killer experiment and it leads to your discoveries. And we were the first to discover that an end protein called vascular endothelial growth factor stimulated nitric oxide, this blood dilating molecule, vessel dilating molecule. That was back in 97. And over time, that has evolved into developing the protective pathways. And that led to a spin out from the medical school. And we've now developing that still further, led to a world's first clinical trial on statin in pregnancy, which has never been done before. So all of these things take time. That's the first thing to say. But it all started where I was making a difference, is that you'd also need an ardent, critical friend. And mine was my daughter, many years ago now. She's just starting medical school. But she said, "Daddy, you talk about VGF, but what have you actually done? This was when she was about 10. We were walking in Morven Hill, not far from our house. And what she was really talking about is what I have done for others. And at this time, I had already been a professor for 8 years, had a big lab, big grants. So I was thinking, what are you talking about? But what she meant, what have you done for others? And that changed us from scientists to patient-centric, student-centric. And that eventually led to the foundation of Aston Medical School. And what I want to tell you, that this school is unique in the UK in that it has nearly 40% of students who come to this school are from students whose parents haven't been to university, whose household income is less than £35,000, and who come from state schools, not fee-paying schools like my children went to. So it wasn't for them. And people would say to me, oh, it's great that Birmingham is now the only city in the UK outside London to have 2 medical schools and separated by 200 years. And my son and daughter can go there. And I used to say, it's not for your son and daughter, it's for people who don't think medicine is for them. But obviously now the government bought into the idea, and now it's for everyone, but 40% of the places are for kids from hard to reach communities. And so our point was not to reduce the grades, but to increase excellence. And for that, we created Sir Doug Ellis Healthcare Pathway Program. And this is a program that over lunch, Sir Doug Ellis, who was the chairman of Aston Villa, gave me £500,000. And that led to that creation of that program, which is a 2-year program for schools to be involved in. And we didn't just do it for the medical students, for graduate students. So those 3 girls you see in that picture, Sophie, May, and Milda, when they came into my labs for a period as placement students while they were undergraduates to learn about research. And then they came back and did their PhD, and they're now about to finish. And so you can transform people's lives by giving them exposure. And that reminds me of my own exposures that I had. And when people are thinking about going to university, and this whole thing would not have happened if it wasn't for Baroness Brown, Julia King, who was the Vice Chancellor at the time. And she's one of the world's most influential STEM women in the world. And she's an engineer. And she was one who said, okay, I'll give you a chance if you want to do this. Let's see what you can do. Let's do friends gathering. So what I'm trying to say is that it's important to find champions. And Dr. Tim Watts was the first to say, I'll give you £50,000 to get going. And so there were lots of those kind of conversations at the beginning. And now that's done, and there are 320 students walking around who are studying medicine. What my focus is, what do we do about research excellence? And I'm advising the University of Southampton president. And why Southampton? So I think it's really important that when you're choosing a university, you choose on 3 things: excellence, sustainability, collegiality. These are the 3 things you should be looking for, and Southampton has that. And more importantly, in this time of COVID, institutions have been divided into 2 groups, in my opinion. One, those who've gone out to hunt for COVID, whether it is through vaccine or therapeutics or technology development, as you can see from this presentation, or you are rolling up your sleeves to receive the jab. So if you have a choice, go to the ones that were hunting. Second, look at diversity in the institution, both leadership and in the faculty, not just in the student population, because this is becoming important, as we know, across the Western world at least. And diversity in Indian context, India is the most diverse country, but it has still a long way to go to address caste and creed issues. And so I want to show you this map. One is a map of COVID deaths, and the other is a map of maternal death. And what you can see is a very stark presentation. You can see maternal death happens to be in the so-called developing world, the growing world. And COVID death predominantly has been in kind of countries where people like me live. And that's why it's right in your face every day of the week. Whereas women are dying from pregnancy complications every day and no one is talking about it. So what can we do about this? Just as we have been working amazingly for discovering vaccines and treatments for COVID, we need to be thinking about women's health issues. Because every minute a woman or a baby dies around the world due to preeclampsia. This is a life-threatening condition in pregnancy. Pregnancy is a risky business, and preeclampsia is a silent killer. And like COVID, it is an unmet medical need. But think of pregnancy as a journey in a car. Halfway through the journey, the brakes fail, the car crashes with very little warning. That's preeclampsia. And affects around 1 in 12 pregnancies. There are about 130 million live births every year, and every minute a life is lost due to preeclampsia. And there is no cure, no accurate diagnostic, and no way to treat it. We can solve it. It needs our and your attention. What does it do? It affects, obviously, the maternal blood pressure. The organs get damaged, and if left unchecked, it can lead to convulsion and death. And in India itself, there are many women die because of this in pregnancy. My lab was one of the first to suggest that it is a loss of a protein called VEGF, because there's a rise in an anti-VEGF protein naturally. And it's been now confirmed by many studies. So the protein that is a culprit is called soluble FLT. But as many people went to look for this, we asked a different question, and it's all about asking the right question. We didn't ask what causes preeclampsia. If 1 in 12 women get it, what do the other 11 have that they don't get it? And that led us to finding the protective pathways, which were defective. And then we discovered that the protective pathways, there are 2 enzymes called hemoxygenase and cysteine gamma lyase. They act to suppress the culprit, that soluble FLT. So once we discovered that, we went out to work out the roadmap of preeclampsia by genetically modifying these pathways. And that has led us to spin out a company, Mirzan Therapeutics, and we have developed an integrated approach to predict, detect, prevent, and treat preeclampsia. And now we're in Series A, B fundraising. And so what does our drug do? I mean, it's not just one, it's a pipeline of drugs. So we have shown that MZE786 inhibits the culprit's protein soluble FLT, reduces blood pressure, improves kidney function, reduces oxidative stress, is basically cellular stress, and improves the lining of the uterus is linked to the baby through an organ called the placenta, which is a fetal organ. That improves, it reduces the damage to that and increases the live births. This normalization of the signs of preeclampsia. And some of you may ask, how does that happen? Well, there's a whole complex paper we've just published in one of Nature series scientific report, which shows that it suppresses the damaging molecules called hydrogen superoxides, and that leads to a reduction in soluble FLT. That's the way these things are working. But and we've shown that one of the gases, hydrogen sulfide, is able to inhibit this culprit. And I want to bring back, what is it that makes you go out to make these kind of discoveries? And so some time ago, we are sometimes inspired by people we meet, even for a short period. And one of those was a period when I met with Richard Ernst, who got the Nobel Prize for NMR spectroscopy in '91. And 15 years ago, Richard and I were having tea together, and he said something which I wanted to, and then he shared me with his cartoon, this is a modified cartoon of his, said something that I want to share with you. And he said, if you want to excel in your profession, then find an additional passion, because you will not get to that road to Stockholm otherwise. His additional passion was painting, and mine was poetry, and he was encouraging me. I've just written a book of poetry. This was 2004 sometime. And he said, because you need that addition, and he was encouraging me basically, you need that to have that creative mindset, to think outside the box. And what I will add 3 more P's to this 2 P's, right? Having done the medical school, which was done against all the odds. There was a gap between last one in Birmingham was established 200 years ago. And it wasn't at a time when government wasn't funding it. So we went ahead anyway, because we felt it was the right thing to do. So you need purpose, because purpose gives you focus. And when you have focus, work isn't work, as Steve Jobs once said. And then you need, as we heard in the earlier speaker, persistence, that resilience, that you will be told it cannot be done. You'll be told you are no good. You'll be told it's not going to work. All the negatives will be put to you. But you need to be persistent and have a clear vision. And even then, you will hit a brick wall where you can't go through and you can't go around it. And that's when you need the power of persuasion, when others come to your vision, and it becomes a common vision, and together they help you climb over the wall. Then becomes the common vision, and it's no longer your project, it's a collective project. And so our approach to develop the preventative therapeutic is on that. All of humanity is being mirrored across the globe as we seek the cure for COVID, right? So in our vision is a world free from fear of preeclampsia. where women can experience a safe, healthy, and happy pregnancy. So my message is very simple. One test, one pill saves 2 lives, mother and child. This should be the goal. Thank you.
Excellent. So does anyone have question maybe? Sorry.
I mean, we can have a discussion. I'm happy to.
Yeah, that's great. So no, that's great. First of all, I'm very much thankful to you that you joined, and very illustrious profile you have. I mean, it's personally inspired me, and I told him personally also, like how you did establishing a medical school was not easy, and then it's really not easy. It's a very difficult job, and then maintaining your academic profile, H index around 80, I guess 80, I remember. So that's excellent. So I just wanted to know that you said that it's in the clinical trial. So can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I mean,
how far the good results?
Yeah, so we've done phase 2 clinical trial so the statin bit, we've done that as a free thing for the world because but now we're focused on targeted therapeutics. Yes. So now it's about, I think you have to take this as so we're focused on 3 areas: US, Europe, and China are the 3 major market, and India would be another one, but I think it will be something for the future. But those 3 markets we're focused on developing. But we right now we've done the basic research. It's no longer research. It's more about development of the pharmaceutics, and then doing phase 2 clinical trials for the targeted therapeutics, because it's no point doing a shotgun approach, because most drugs so far have been not personalized. So we're now targeted therapeutic is a better way to do it, has less side effects, etc. So it's still a long way to go, but what I wanted to come back to was is because this is for students.
Yes.
Is that go and look for your mentors. Most people will help. In my experience, most people will help if you approach them. So don't be afraid to ask.
And I just wanted to know, so like the research when came at that time and now, we have many in silico programs, and that actually gives you more personalized approach for this every drug, the compound you enter, and then for different genotypes they say, okay, this population is having more like this effect and a different effect. So are you looking anything forward in looking into those aspects also? Because these are very optimized. Like if you synthesize any compound in the lab today without testing in mice or anything, you put in the software and they will say these metabolites is expected in your plasma or urine. So these are so fast and optimized. So any approach you are thinking for personalized medicine? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, most research in pregnancy has been like extrapolating from other disorders.
Yes.
And that's a wrong approach. Because preeclampsia is a unique thing that happens to women in pregnancy and after pregnancy. On the surface, it's gone. I mean, it has consequences later in life. If you have a severe preeclampsia, you're likely to die prematurely from heart disease, stroke, even to get dementia. All of those things are true, but the actual symptoms are gone after delivery of the mother and the baby and the placenta from the mother, right? So our tailored therapy is to predict who will get it and then give them the treatment which is targeted to the specific pathway.